My introduction to wargaming was during the Rogue Trader period, and the narrative skirmish adventure element of Rogue Trader was forever burnt into my perception of what wargaming is all about. Over the years I've GM'd several narrative skirmish campaigns using Rogue Trader, Inquisitor in 54 and 28mm scales, and just plain old 2nd edition rules. In all of these campaigns, an Imperial spaceport has always been a necessary location at one point or another. They're a great place for factions to meet. Maybe you're an Inquisitor trying to stop an Imperial renegade from getting off planet, or a Rogue Trader whose freighter has been impounded along with its suspicious cargo, or even you've won a ship in a card game off some guy called Abdul Goldberg. In my mind, a spaceport needs spaceships, not gunships or fighters, although they may be there too, but something large that's not in an army list, basically a piece of terrain. And here's the result. Okay, so first off, let's get an idea of scale. We've got the old Sisters of Battle Rhino here. So 1 there, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 maybe. Rhinos in length, so quite a large piece of terrain. Fortunately, the conversion was pretty simple. The original Rebel Transport toy came in 2 halves, the sort of top half, bottom half, and they kind of clipped together. So all I had to do is figure out the space that I needed for 2 shipping containers. That's pretty easy. I knew which containers I was going to use. So all I had to do is measure those out. Here's the original section. Just cut that out. Obviously I cut short the first time just to be on the safe side, and then a second cut just to get the exact length I needed. It's easier to cut more away than it is to add it back. So once that was done, I ended up with the top half with these 2 removable sort of covers where I think the original's got guns pointing out of it and you can put the pilot in and all that sort of stuff. So they were loose and I hot glued those from the inside, making the top half just one piece. Then that left me these 2 separate pieces left over. And before I could glue those in, I just had to create these bulkheads here to close it off. Now I think I used foam core, just a black foam core that I had, drew around it, cut it to shape, put it in, and then all this detail trying to mimic the original hull is just cereal box card, cut out, pair of scissors and just glued on, and I found that worked pretty well. Same as this side, that's plastic there is original sort of hull, and then I added this just to close it all off. So once those 2 bits were complete with the bulkheads and detailed, I then hot glued those in to the end, and the thing started to have a bit of rigidity then, and I could start working on it a bit more. There was some thought to doing the same to this, but because it's never seen on the table, I didn't see the point in wasting the time on that. But I can always go back to it for completeness if I want. So as for the containers, they were old AT-43 containers. I don't know if anyone watching this used to play that game, but the models used to come in these shipping containers as a sort of packaging, if you like, and although they're a little bit awkward to get open. Let me get another one. Oh yeah, this one's open. There you go. So the model would come packaged inside that, so you could obviously use this as terrain in your games, which I thought was a great idea. It's out of production now, not been going for years, but I went for these because it was just so easy to open them up and glue a magnet into the roof to marry up with these. Now these are Valkyrie landing gear or landing feet from the Valkyrie gunships, and you know, they used to be on eBay broken down into components, and they're pretty easy to get. Not so easy anymore, but you may still be able to find them. But it was easy, just a magnet there. There was a nice recess in the middle of the landing gear, which allowed a magnet to be placed there. And then, just as easy as that, the containers were ready to go on. Now, they're not the most 40k of containers, and maybe I'll look to painting them or adding something, or maybe using the 40k sort of gothic looking shipping containers in the future. But they'll do for now. You know, and I quite like them, even with their sort of Russian type red block symbols on the side. Now, I did deliberately leave quite a large gap between the containers. It can be handy in games if you've maybe got one removed, troops can move around in there, hide in there. I did have the thought of putting an elevated sort of walkway front to back, but probably too fiddly to actually use in game, so I didn't bother. Just left it kind of clear. You can see the sort of crew entry hatch and ladder though through the gap, and same down the end there, sort of like some kind of hatchway there into the engines, which is a nice sort of feature. Now, before this sort of load carrying plate was glued in, I took care of all the detail on the model, especially these ones here in the recesses. Now, these openings all come in the model originally, and I did think about just blocking them off from the inside with plastic card and maybe painting them a pale sort of orange or some colour like that, like these squares here, just to add some visual interest to the piece. But I thought it'd be fun to see what bits I could come up with just to fill these spaces, and how that was done was on the inside. Before this plate was glued in, I just sprayed some balsa wood sort of rods or sticks black, put them either side of the opening, and then used some black plastic card with some vehicle body repair mesh or sculptor's mesh glued over the top. Spray the whole lot black, paint these details up, glue them on, and then use the balsa sticks to sort of keep these things the right distance so they don't protrude through the openings. And yeah, I'm quite happy with it. Adds quite a nice bit of detail. Would they be there really on a ship? I don't know. I like to think that perhaps it's undergoing maintenance, and that the outer hatches have been removed to get to certain items. The hatch comes from the Deptus Mechanicus kits, one of the furnace kits, something like that. I think the handles are from the old 2nd edition Lehman Russ sprue, and so forth, so on. All sorts of bits added to the original hull, just to try and 40k it up a little bit. That's the Land Raider hatch. I'm sure many of you have recognised it. I think Cyberclicks, the ladders and the railings come from a Cyberclicks terrain set. These are vehicle hatches from, I don't know, Old Crow or some other manufacturer, just glued on. The legs were probably the hardest to sort of get right or get in proportion. And how I done those were combining tail devilfish landing gear feet with the arm legs, support legs that come from the, I think it's Aegis defense line or something like that. The quad gun goes in there. So just combining those two with a bit of polystyrene cement and then doubling them up. Luckily I had the bits spare, but I suppose you could use just whole landing gear from any of the Games Workshop kits, or possibly even another toy. But yeah, so that was it pretty much. Once all that detail was done, they were all painted separately. Obviously the main hull I just primed white with Halford's white primer, covered in Army Painter quick shade using a sort of 2-inch brush, and then just used a little bit of thinners. I can't remember if it's cellulose thinners or white spirits, whatever they use for Army Painter, and used it to brush off some of the quick shade in places, just to give it that sort of worn, mottled effect. Which I was really happy with the way it came out. Everything else was picked out in a craft pewter. Most of the silver highlighting was done with a Sharpie, just to speed things up. A little bit of weathering powder for burn marks at the back. And there you go. Oh yeah, I might mention that part there. Most of you probably would have recognised that, but that's a drop pod hatch, one of the hatches from a Games Workshop drop pod kit, and it just added an extra sharpness to the nose, which I thought it needed. Sort of, again, that 40k'ing of an item to sort of bring it into the universe. So that was pretty much it. Once everything was sprayed and painted separately, all these details were added in from underneath. Once they were all secured and glued in place, then I glued this into place to load the shipping containers, and that was pretty much it. Not complicated overall. Did take a bit of time purely because of the size of the thing, but really happy that I finally have a sort of large 40k craft, which isn't a model, isn't part of an army. It's literally just a piece of terrain for scenarios and sort of narrative campaigns. In conclusion, well, as previously stated, I'm really happy with the result. I enjoyed the project from beginning to end, and it's left me with a great centrepiece for the battlefield. Hopefully too it's inspired anyone who watches this to grab an old Star Wars toy, or any other range of toys for that matter, and try and make something 40k out of it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.